Namo Amida Buddha. Hello, future Buddhas. Thanks for dropping by. So I was hanging out on Quora, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's it's a website where people ask questions and get answers. And I came across the $10 million question. Is Amida Buddha real? And what is Pureland? And so I wrote an answer and I thought I'd share it. And so what I wrote is, firstly, anyone who says Amida Buddha is not real has not done what I did and am doing, putting aside what they think they know and inquiring into the depths of their being, into the Buddha within. Really, no one who has not done this Shin Buddhist practice of setting aside all their beliefs and listening deeply, reflecting on the message, really has anything to add to the discussion. All they will be doing is answering from preconceived ideas. The existence or non-existence of Amida and the Pure Land cannot be known by the mind. All the mind can do is generate opinions. And nearly all of those opinions are based on wrong ideas about what Shinrin taught. That's something I'm starting to encounter is I really get clear what Shinrin taught. Well, first of all, I thought I knew what Shinrin taught. But as I really dive in, I see that I have a lot of misconceptions and a lot of people who dismiss Amida Buddha or dismiss the Pure Land path have a lot of misconceptions. So I'll continue reading. To make matters worse, many Shin Buddhists don't do this practice either. So back to the question, is Amida Buddha real? And what I wrote is, I believe so, for three main reasons. Firstly, Nagarjuna, considered to be the greatest Buddhist philosopher, second only to the Buddha, said that he was. Personal experiences. Someone gave me a book about Amida, and after reading one page, not really knowing much about Buddhism, I was seized by the feeling of how important this was. And he was. And that night, I took refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, not really knowing very much about Buddhism. It was amazing. I met this woman who told me a little bit about Jodo Shinshu, but all she really said was that it's about like offering incense and feeling grateful, and that it was a form of Buddhism. And she wanted to send me books about it. And I was like, okay. And she sent me these books, and I read like one or two pages, and I was just something grabbed me. And and this was almost 25 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I want to study Japanese. I want to share this with the world. That was the feeling I had. And sadly, I didn't follow up on it. And that night, I just did an impromptu taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, really not knowing very much about Buddhism. It was very powerful. So I'll continue reading. About 3 years later, after that night of having taken refuge, after watching a very intense movie, I had a full visionary experience. The world disappeared, and I was shown all my karma. Wow, there was a lot. And I felt a deep sense of horror and terror, unspeakable horror. And then a Buddha came and smiled and gave me comfort. At the time, I didn't know which Buddha it was. And now, 20 years later, I realized that it was Amida Buddha. I'm not the kind of person who has visionary experiences. There are people on the spiritual path who that's very common. It's not for me. I don't know what happened. I was just sitting in a movie theater and the whole, like, everything just went black. And I saw these mountains and I just knew what they were. They were karma. They was my karma. And like the mountains were made of sand, and every grain of sand, I just kind of knew all this. It was very interesting. Every grain of sand was a negative karma I'd accumulated. And it was just like, imagine the Grand Canyon, but mountains. Like there was a lot, and I was just in total horror. And then this up to my left, just this Buddha with a very interesting expression, and now I know what that expression is. Absolute compassion, absolute acceptance of me came, and I just felt instantly comforted. And yeah, and I really feel that it was, and part of why I feel it was Amida Buddha is afterwards, is I had this feeling of like, somehow I'm going to combine the 12 steps and Christianity and Buddhism. And when I have really meditated on that, it's like, oh, they're all about relying on other power. They're all other power paths. And Amida Buddha, Amitabha is the only other power Buddha, or the Buddha that teaches that path. So, and lastly, I'll continue reading why I believe in Amida Buddha. Personal reflections. Having begun the practice of Shin Buddhism, which is to put aside all one's beliefs temporarily and listen to the teachings about Amida and ask yourself if they are true from the deepest part of your being, I'm starting to get yeses from deep within, and I'm starting to feel a peace and a joy that is indescribable. So that's my current answer to do I believe Amida Buddha is real and why I do. I'm definitely in process. This is I don't claim to have settled Shinjin yet or certainty, and that's where I'm at right now. Thanks so much for dropping by this video. Namo Amida Buddha.